this video we are talking about the dreaded chicken wing. It's something that players who have it would give anything to stop doing it. But the truth of the matter is, if you don't address the root causes of why it happens in the first place, then no amount of doing drills or just working on changing your swing is going to fix it. And so in this video, we're going to learn a little bit more about what the chicken wing is, why it happens in the first place, and how you can fix it. So let's start by talking about what the chicken wing is. And if you chicken wing, you probably know you do. Your friends have probably pointed out to you. But if you're not sure what a chicken wing is, it's when a player is coming through impact, and rather than having this nice extended release of the arms, they come through bunched up with bends in the elbows. And that's where the chicken wing name comes from. So when we're talking about the chicken wing, what we're talking about, yes, it looks like these chicken wings, but it's typically an inability to clear. So what I mean by an inability to clear is if we look at great players, typically through impact, you can see both of their cheeks as they make all this space for their arms to extend through. But players who can't clear out of the way are forced to kind of shrug and pull up to get the club through, and this is very inconsistent, and it leads to not very much power in your shots, and we all want to have that. So why does this happen? Well, there's two things going on, but again, it has to do with clearing through the shot. One of the big concepts that overlays this is something known as dissociation, or the ability to control the lower and the upper halves of your body independently from one another. So what we're talking about is pelvic rotation, and we'll call it shoulder rotation. So we want to improve the rotation of the lower body and the upper body to be able to clear through the shot. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we do with pelvic rotation is we need to get our glutes fired up, because without active glutes we can't do the other mobility pieces needed to make that change. Once they're fired up, we're going to do something called a 90-90, which really improves the rotation of your hips, and then we're going to do something called a frog stretch. And these are all great ways to really improve rotation of the pelvis and through the hips. On the other side of it, we have our shoulders, and we're going to do pass-throughs, an easy exercise that you can do using a club or a band, even a broomstick, and you can open up your shoulders, get them warm and more mobile at the same time. Then we have divers presses. And divers presses are a great exercise to get the shoulders to rotate and the lats to lengthen. And then finally, we're going to do an armpit press, which is really going to help with the ability to separate the arms from the body, particularly overhead. And what happens in the golf swing is if you get to the top of your swing and you have troubles going overhead, you'll compensate somewhere else, and then something might happen that causes the chicken wing. So we know what it is. It's that inability to clear through the shot, and we know that it has to do with rotation and the ability to control or dissociate the lower and the upper bodies. And this right here is one of our plans of action on how we can fix that issue. One of the most important things any golfer can learn how to do is learn how to activate your glutes. These are super powerful muscles, and they're responsible for generating big swings and for protecting your lower back. But we need to get them turned on. So we're going to lay down on the floor, on our back, and you're going to put your hands under your butt cheeks. You can go palms up, palms down, either is fine. And we're just going to spend some time getting our butt to squeeze and our hands underneath there so that we can feel that sensation and get some feedback. If you want to close your eyes, that can help. But what we're going to do is squeeze both your butt cheeks as hard as you can. 3, 2, 1, and then turn them off. And then squeeze just your right cheek as hard as you can. 3, 2, 1, and turn it off. Then your left cheek, 3, 2, 1, turn it off. Now we're going to turn them both back on, and we're going to see if we can turn just the right one off. Either you can or you can't. Turn it back on, and try to turn your left one off, and then back on. And this will be one cycle, and you can go through this as many times as you need to until your butt is contracting nice and strong. Want powerful drives without hurting your back? You need hip mobility. You need core stability. And this gives you both. This is the hip 90-90. And what we're going to do is, sitting on the ground, we're going to first get ourselves into this 90-90 position with our legs. And for some of you, this might be a lot, in which case, we're just going to spend some time. Maybe this is as far as you can get. That's fine. We can work back and forth wherever your range of motion will take you, and over time, you can get wider and deeper. And over time, you can start playing around with bringing your chest down and kind of scrubbing out these ends of your hip mobility on both sides, over the forward leg, the back leg, scrub it on up, but otherwise, just back and forth and work your way as far as you can get to. Show up each day and you'll get a little bit better every time that you do. And this is the hip 90-90. This next stretch looks weird, but I promise you it's one of my absolute favorites for getting your hips open, and it's called a frog stretch. And what we're going to do is we're going to get onto our hands and knees and start by getting your knees as wide as they can go. Now don't force it. Now you might find that if you walk your hands forward a little bit, you can get a little bit wider, and that's okay. At this point, it doesn't matter about where your feet are, whether they're out or in, just go wherever is comfortable. Then we're going to push ourselves forward and backward, opening up the hip and squeezing the butt when you find some tight spots. Ultimately, we're going to start to work in what I call a W pattern, where our chest goes up to the right, down, out to the left, okay? And then our feet start to go with it, okay? And we're just turning against our hips. Now, what I'm doing right now, what I'm demonstrating, is a very advanced version of the frog stretch. My big warning is don't go too far too quick. Take your time. This is one where patience will reward you. Don't just rush through it. There's a lot of really cool stuff that can happen if you spend the time. So start where I showed you at the beginning and only progress farther if your body will allow you. The biggest key here is doing it consistently over time. It's better to do it for 2 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, than for 10 minutes once a month, okay? So just show up and keep sticking with it, and I promise you, you will be hard-pressed to find a better hip opening stretch. One of my favorite ways to improve my shoulder mobility or warm them up before a round is doing something called a pass-through. And you can do a pass-through in many different ways, using either a golf club or something like a power band. But what is so simple about it is that we all have a driver. Now let me show you how we do a pass-through, and then I'll show you a variation of the pass-through called an egg beater in case you can't do the pass-through. Well, what a pass-through is we're going to put both hands on the outside of the club as wide as we can go, and then keeping our arms straight, we're going to go all the way forward and backward until the club shaft touches our front side or back side, and we just keep going as many times as we need to feel warm, and over time, we're going to scoot our hands a little bit closer together. So a little bit closer, and eventually you're going to get to a point where you can't go any closer, and that's perfectly fine. But some of you may find that you can't even do it as wide as possible, and that's where an egg beater comes in. An egg beater is simply working one side at a time. So I'm going to keep, for example, my right arm straight as I go forward and backward. You'll notice my left arm is bent, and it's just providing some slack and control of the club. If I want to make it harder, I can pull more with my left arm. If I want to make it easier, then my left arm comes more toward my body. And then I can switch sides. Now my left arm is straight, my right arm is bent. And as my shoulders start to warm up, I can go one into another and backwards. And then finally into the pass-through that we started with, okay? The key is to not ever force it, but just spend enough time getting your shoulders warm until they can do what you're trying to get them to do. The other way that I like doing this is through something with like a power band. And the power band is great because you can do the exact same thing that we were just talking about, except now you're always providing a little tension. You're always pulling the band a little bit apart. And this is really great for getting your shoulders to open because it's a little bit more active. And while you can do the same thing with your club by pulling it apart a little bit, nothing's going to be quite as good as the power bands. But pass-throughs are by far one of my favorite ways to get the shoulders warm before you play, before you work out, and to improve your range of motion. One of the keys to having a great golf swing is having great shoulders. And divers presses are a great exercise to help you get there. What we're going to do is stick both our hands out in front of us, cross your left arm over top, and then put your hands together by twisting them. Now we're going to go overhead, and it's okay if your elbows bend a little bit. If you can keep them straight, great. Not a big deal if they bend just a little. And you're going to stay nice and tall, and you're going to press your hands together. You're going to try to press your hands together and press your elbows and your shoulders apart. You're going to feel some tension through your shoulders. This is great. You're going to breathe. And exhale. And as you do that, you're going to slowly twist your hands back and forth a couple of times while breathing, and then eventually you're going to sweep down and back. Now that's one, and we need to balance it out, because that time you put your left arm on top, we need to do it again, but this time with your right arm on top. Same idea, hands together, we go above head, and we repeat. But just remember, every time you do your left, you need to do your right, just to make sure that you stay nice and balanced. If you can create a bigger arc in your swing, you can potentially produce more speed. And more speed means more distance. But one of the things that's probably limiting you from getting your hands nice and high and creating a big arc is some tight muscles through the underside of your arm. And in this exercise, the armpit press, we're going to take care of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to get onto our stomach, and we're going to put our left arm out 45 degrees away from your body. And that's because we're working the left arm. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try to get your armpit down into the ground as best you can. And this is going to be different for everybody depending on your mobility. And then your head is going to face to the right with your head down onto the ground. So my left hand, 45 degrees away from the body. Get that on frame for you guys. 45 degrees away from the body. Head to the side, armpit pressed into the ground. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingers and pull them towards me and off to the side. My right hand is down on the ground like I'm doing a push-up, and it's applying pressure into my armpit. And while I'm holding this position, I'm feeling some really weird sensation in my left hand, and that's the key here. We want to have that. That's a good sign. So I'm going to hang out here for about a minute, and then I'm going to relax and do the other side. And so you can see the other side. Right arm out 45 degrees away from the body. Nestle my armpit into the ground as best I can. Left arm push-up position. Looking away, pull my fingers toward my head, rotate them, push that left hand into the ground, so I'm pushing down into my right armpit. And I'm just going to hang out here for a minute, 2 minutes before coming out of this stretch. And this is a great way to improve the length of the muscles that run down through the armpit, which is going to improve your ability to get your arms nice and high in your swing, which improves your overall club head speed and power. Now, as a little added bonus, this would be a great time to do some speed training with something like a speed stick. If you found any of this information helpful, please go to tourshotgolf.com to check out and learn more. And then check me out on the social medias at Facebook. Come into my free Facebook group, the Mobilitas Movers, or check me out on Instagram or YouTube, both at TourShotGolf. Move better, play better.